Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Time for another show. Not that my soundboard knew that it was time. Another, 1 second hiccup trying to get things underway. Although, guess what this time was? All set to hit the button exactly on time when Zoom decided that it needed to be the window on top. And not only did it need to be on top, it needed to bring another 6 or 7 windows with it and put the soundboard down at the bottom. So a few seconds late today. We'll see if we can't fix that in post-production, or maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe you don't even care. And how could you? There's no time left to care about other things. So we're back on the air live today. We were away from the microphone yesterday, but I did have to sneak in what I guess is still top story of the day. But hey, who really even knows what news is anymore? The President of the United States is tearing down the White House piece by piece. And what can I tell you? We're all flummoxed, I guess. There's National Historic Preservation boards that are running around saying, well, he can't. He has to file the paperwork, and what about this? And all right, well, it's in pieces. So the East Wing has been torn down, and as we touched on yesterday, because I couldn't leave that entirely undiscussed, and I had the opportunity to sneak in something in the pre-recorded show about it yesterday. So yes, we're on record with that. It's gotten worse. He tore down more of it yesterday. I guess the story was, well, on Monday they began doing some demolition work, but the President of the United States, we keep saying that, the President of the United States promised everybody, well, the impact on the rest of the White House, the existing White House, will be minimal. And at some point he said, the ballroom won't even touch it. It won't even touch it. It's separate. It'll be alongside it. And then it became, well, we need to do some work on the facade in order to put the two things together. But the other thing hasn't been built yet. So, big questions. We probably should have guessed quite a long time ago that this was going to go this way. It's just, I guess another sign of the normalization capacity of the presidency to just make newspapers and journalists assume that they're telling something close to the truth, or else they would just blurt out. I don't know why they're hiding their plans anymore. But he kept pointing to the equipment at parked nearby, saying we're going to be building this beautiful new ballroom. Really, honestly, a project like that should have taken years to get off the ground. But okay, he wanted to move things quickly. But nobody ever really said anything about it when he would say, look at this equipment we have. We're going to start construction soon. And if you look at it, well, equipment like that, how do you build a ballroom with equipment like a backhoe, right? Or several of them, and dump trucks, etc. Well, that's not really the equipment you would have on hand to build a ballroom at this stage of the game. That's the equipment you might have to demolish something. And I don't know why nobody said he's probably going to demolish, I guess, the East Wing. But he said it won't impact the building. And honestly, who could possibly believe, who'll go out on a limb and write in their newspaper or broadcast on their television airwaves that, yes, the President of the United States says that it won't impact the building, but everyone can see that he's got dynamite and dump trucks. What's going to happen? And then, of course, he began doing it. And on Monday, the story was, well, they're demolishing the facade. And then by Tuesday, it was like, well, there's a little bit more. And now the whole thing's gone. They gutted, they just tore it down. There was no other thing you could be doing with the equipment that was parked there. And then they also tried to suppress the photos of it somehow, which is amazing. It's like one of the most public-facing buildings in Washington, D.C., but trying to prohibit people from circulating photos of it. It's totally insane. And, we're going on like, well, the story is actually, well, what's the Historic Preservation Board really going to do about it? You can't just build the thing over again. And, of course, Donald Trump has a history of this, that too being dredged back up. He's done this before where he had historic buildings in his hands where he was supposed to preserve certain parts of it, and he just said, the hell with it. He's got no attachment to these things. The art doesn't mean anything to him. He wasn't going to make any money by preserving it. It's supposed to have, public goodwill, but who cares about that? Give me your daughters. So here we are. It's under construction. It's not under construction. It's under destruction. So, all right. Anyway, I know Greg Dworkin will have something to say about that, but also other things are under destruction too, as it turns out. People's campaigns are under destruction. Greg Dworkin has collected the stories about them. We'll make it simple and get right down to business. Greg Dworkin is here. Good morning, Greg. How are you, Imperial Margarine fan that you are?
Good morning. Yeah, that is one of my favorites because it's blessedly short.
Yes, right.
Mike Lukovich had this great cartoon. He's got two elephants, cartoon elephants, and a cartoon cab of a cartoon giant wrecking ball. And the wrecking ball's about to hit something that looks like the White House, but the label is the Affordable Care Act. And the one elephant says to the other elephant, we just want to do a little remodeling.
That's about the speed of it, yes.
This comes down to, well, how many divisions does the Preservation Board have?
Yeah. That's all there is to it. Although I will say this, I make it sound like there was somebody that could do something about it, and there isn't. But I was reminded of, as I'm watching the press sort of saying, well, this is sort of unprecedented, I was reminded of the old, very old now, David Broder quote. If you remember, he came in here
in this town. This is our town.
He came in here and he trashed the place, and it's not his place. And that was like a huge thing. That was, metaphorically speaking, he was upset with Bill Clinton having won the presidency twice, basically making the town and its culture his own.
Yeah.
And he wrecked the place.
Was that over selling visits to the Lincoln bedroom or whatever?
Oh, I think it was a little bit of everything. It was just the way he comported himself.
Well, he's a Democrat and Broder's a Republican, and that's the end of it, and that's all you need to know.
So and now they actually are trashing the place, and by which they mean a whole wing of the White House. And, well, it may be that is a federal building and he has control, and oh my God.
Yeah, sue me. Take it to the Supreme Court. So, but the thing is that I think Lukovich had exactly the right point here, subtle though it may be. The wrecking ball isn't subtle. But he doesn't have Trump in the cab of the wrecking ball.
That's true.
He has two elephants. Point being, this is Republicans' fault. You should blame Republicans for anything you do not like right now about the White House politics, your life, the economy, how you did in the last swim meet you participated in, your golf game, whatever it is you don't like, it is Republicans' fault. You have to internalize that and externalize it and make sure everybody knows and understands that's what's going on. That's what Lukovich did with that simple cartoon, because a good political cartoonist is a genius, and Lukovich is one of them. Yeah. And it's exactly perfect and exactly right.
It's a good point. Blame it on the Republicans. They're in the middle of doing it. And I saw some video of...
Shut down. Slow down. This is Republicans' fault.
Sure, absolutely. Though they keep saying over and over again, it's Democrats.
Not releasing the Epstein files, that is Mike Johnson's fault. This is Republicans' fault.
Yeah. So plenty of this to go around. I saw a little video clip of Trump, I guess, speaking to a gathering of the Republican congressional conferences and complaining about everything, but going on and on about how he didn't understand. You can't explain this. No one can explain it to me. There's no reason for it. But historically, in the midterms, the president's party loses seats. No one understands it. No one can explain it. Well, everyone understands it. Everyone feels it. Everyone explains it every 4 years. But I guess I just throw that in there along with the truth is that it's Republicans doing, but they want to hear from a guy who says, no, it isn't, and we should be winning, and everyone loves what we're doing, and they're walking right off the cliff with them. So I don't know when they're going to wake up to that, but maybe day after Election Day.
Yeah.
If we're lucky.
Anyway, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
But, a whole bunch of new polling, and we got elections in 2 weeks where you have a chance to actually blame Republicans. So that's what I want to talk about today. This is
I
going
will
to be
do
the,
that.
the
Yes.
polling edition.
I blame that guy. Okay, great. Let's do it.
All right, let's start with Will Jordan. And he writes on Twitter, Vibe Shift, new Q3 2025 party ID data from Gallup just moved to D+7.
Okay.
Democrats' best reading since the first quarter of the Biden administration, because all the people that answered the Gallup poll were shown the Lukovich cartoon before they started.
Well,
Noisy, but one of the only public, regular, methodologically consistent measurements of the partisan makeup of the United States, and that's why we do it. I sent you the graph that goes with it, and you can see that up until the Biden years, the Democrats had a lead in party ID and lost that, and just got it back in a big way.
Oh, look, there it is.
And for this quarter, at least, Gallup has Dems in a better position than the same stage in Trump's first term, both in terms of the overall percentage identifying with Democrats, 47 versus 48, and in terms of the gap between the parties, D+4 versus D+7. So it's counter to the conventional wisdom. Everybody says Democrats are in trouble, this, that, and everything else. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks. We'll see. Now, other polling, different kind of polling. This is Economist YouGov, generic ballot. Democrats 45, Republicans 40. That's a +5. That's strong enough to retake the House, regardless of what they do with the redistricting garbage that they're playing with. And that's an improvement over the last time they looked. This is Aaron Blake with some relevant polling amid the No Kings debate. His link is from a CNN story that he did. It may be behind a paywall because these days CNN is making his stuff behind a paywall. He was a columnist for the Washington Post. When the Washington Post exodus happened, he found himself at CNN. But this is what he writes. 56% said Trump had gone too far in using the power of the presidency and the executive branch in July. CNN poll. 57% said Trump had gone too far in April. AP NORC. 62% Trump had gone beyond his authority as president. September Washington Post poll. 56, 57, 62. Not exactly comparable, slightly different wording, different polls. 69% said Trump was exercising more presidential power than other recent presidents, and 49% said that it was bad, according to a September Pew Research Center poll. 54% New York Times Siena said he's exceeding the powers available to him, according to a September poll, and that included nearly 1 in 5 Republicans. And before Trump's second term began, Americans about evenly split on whether he was going to try to rule as a dictator. 53%, it was at least somewhat likely by December. In Reuters Ipsos poll, 53% said they were concerned, even though he claims as a joke that he wanted to be a dictator for a day, according to a Pew poll. And 49% of voters said Trump was a fascist in October 2024 ABC News Ipsos poll. So this is not something you have to convince the public of, that he's gone too far in trashing the White House, literally the building. It's already set up for people to believe this, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes. Well, they're seeing it.
Now, let's get specific. I have strong ties to people I love in Virginia.
All right.
So let's talk Virginia.
Okay.
I was going to add that, so let's talk New Jersey. Let's talk Virginia first.
All right.
A new nonpartisan poll. Important that it's nonpartisan, but we'll get to that. Chaz Nuttycombe is one of the young Turk type new analysts. Lakshya Jain has foreign split ticket after analyzing the election as a young upstart. And Chaz Nuttycombe, as a young upstart, has now formed something called State Navigate. Okay. And he's featuring his own poll.
Sure, why not? If your name is Chaz Nuttycombe, I would feature my name on everything.
Yeah, I would put State Navigate. So 1017 really? Through 1020, likely voters. Virginia governor. Okay, you ready? Abigail Spanberger, 55. Winsome Earl Sears, 42. That's just out this morning.
Okay.
Virginia Attorney General, Jay Jones, 50. Jason Miyares, 45.
Good, great, fine.
Virginia Lieutenant Governor Ghazala Hashmi, 53, John Reed, 42. If I recall correctly, John Reed is the guy that Glenn Youngkin didn't want
Yeah,
to
he's
run.
got some issues too, but you get lost in who's got what kind of problems. But
Right. Virginia House of Delegates, Democratic 53, Republican 41. But of course, it matters with each individual HD in terms of who runs what.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think the same group did an HD 82, which is the Hampton Roads area, Pocasson and
Okay.
Hampton, town of Hampton. And basically, it was an even split
Okay.
for their local delegate. And that's not good for Republicans.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because that's a very, Pocasson is like entirely Republican.
Is it?
And Hampton leans Democrat, but
Yeah.
you got to turn out. So the fact that it was as good as it was for the Democrats in that HD poll is one of those things that, this is a bellwether. If it's, if Republicans aren't stomping here, then they're in trouble. So
right.
There's some signs of importance, but they are a nonpartisan poll. There were other nonpartisan polls and a couple of very partisan polls that are flooding the market. So when you see that, the governor race is narrowing, if you have a coefficient poll or an insider advantage poll or some poll that's, basically a partisan poll or, the Democratic Attorney General's Association, whatever they call themselves.
Okay, right.
And it's a Democratic poll. You can dismiss it a little bit. Virginia Commonwealth had a poll suggesting that Maori's was up over James J., but this one says the opposite. And the point there to make about those kinds of polls is that it's always hard to know exactly what the poll means because it's all based on who you think the electorate's going to be. You want to make it older, whiter, more Republican, less Democrat. You're going to get Maori's up.
Okay.
If you're going to do, I'll base it on the last election, then you might get Maori's and John Jay tied. If you're going to base it on the current, idea of how many educated, non-educated, how many college, what's the percentage of blacks in the electorate sort of thing, you're going to get John Jay up. So, what's the electorate really going to look like? I'll tell you in 2 weeks.
Yes, well, you actually have to wait to find that part out. Okay, well, what can I tell you? Go vote.
But here's the most interesting, this is, Abigail Spangenberger is going to win. It's a question of how much. If she really has a 12 or 13 point lead, she'll probably pull Jay over the line for the Attorney General. And if it's only a 6-point lead or so, she probably won't. The Lieutenant Governor will probably win by a slightly less margin than Spangenberger. And if you want to consider the Attorney General race a toss-up, I won't blame you.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to consider it that, but yes.
Right, based on vibes and based on everything else, it looks like all three Democrats will win, with the Attorney General being by far the closest race. Now, that's not even the most interesting part of the poll. Let me tell you about the most interesting part of the poll.
Okay.
Yes. President Trump's approval.
Oh.
In the state of Virginia.
The Commonwealth.
You want to guess? In the Commonwealth of Virginia, which everybody else outside of Virginia and Massachusetts thinks it's a state.
Approval. 41.
40.
40. Hey.
Disapproved, 59.
Ah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is the very, very, very first poll I've seen pick this up. Governor Youngkin disapproved 47, approved 46. That would make him one of the most unpopular governors in the country.
Yeah, I guess so. Though right, we're still stuck with he has a fleece vest, so that means he's a popular governor.
Popular disapproval is greater than approval governor. The way George Bush was a popular governor right after Katrina,
but they do
because
keep
he was,
that.
And therefore he always is, even though the numbers tanked.
Yeah, he brushes his teeth, combs his hair, and has a vest, and most people forget that he's there. So he's a popular governor, but people don't. It's not that they remember that he's active every day. They're just like, he's not doing anything, and he's kind of a jerk. And every time he has to make a decision, he sides with Trump. Unpopular governor.
Those numbers are meh important because he wants to run for president, but he's not a popular governor. And what I'm saying, and more importantly, the Trump numbers, 59 disapprove, 40 approve.
Yes.
If that is the political environment that the voters are thinking about when they show up to vote,
then
the Republicans are going to lose.
Weeks. Yeah, good. Well, the sooner the better. But unfortunately, we have a hard date where we find out, or when you're allowed to start counting, and so that you can find out. I know some days we don't find out that day.
Don't forget, you guys can vote early.
Right, it's true, and we're going to try and make use of that. We didn't get back into Loudoun County before the early voting station closed at 7 for the day, but we still have up until 5 o'clock today. Thursday they open until 7 again. We'll get it done with the college boy who's in town.
And as we talked about the other day, don't make too much of early vote numbers as they come in, because you can't compare apples and oranges.
Right.
The dates that the early voting centers open are all different than they were the last time you went through this.
I wouldn't waste my time on it.
Don't waste your time.
I mean, honestly, all you're going to get is...
There's nothing about it in the early vote that says that the Democrats are doing terrible. That's all I'll tell you.
Okay. So if anybody tries to tell you that that's something to worry about, I wouldn't worry. We haven't counted the votes yet, and they're just trying to give you a number because this is the only number they have. How many people came to cast ballots? Why are you even telling me this?
Right,
you could
because
divine
it'll be decided on election day, and besides, a lot of the Democratic areas didn't open until just this week.
Yeah, that's where you're trying to. More Democrats in traditionally Democratic areas, less Democrats cast ballots. Well, were they allowed to? No. Oh. Well, all right then. Okay.
When Prince William County, when Arlington, when places like that opened up their satellite polling places, they got an influx of voters. Had nobody showed up, I'd be worried. But that's not what happened.
I guess that's true.
Don't worry about it, and then just go ahead and wait till the election.
When it was open, people voted. When it was closed, where were they? Huh?
Well, if it's open and where were they, you're in trouble. That's all I'm saying. And that's not what happened. So that's
I am
Virginia.
not worried.
I'm expecting a win in Virginia. We'll see how much.
I'm
and
not
again,
worried about
the implications. Well, it's just New York City. What kind of national implications could that? It's just Virginia. What kind of national implications could that? Everything has national implications.
True. We're stuck with that.
For example, there's a scandal about what's going on with the Attorney General candidate for the Democrats.
Yes.
Because he had violent texts a couple of years ago when the environment was different and before Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Yeah.
Inappropriate, shouldn't have happened. He apologized. How much difference does it make? Does the younger crowd care about what you said online 2 years ago because they say stuff online last week that they're embarrassed about, but move on and who cares?
Right.
Or are older voters going to hold him accountable? We'll see.
Maybe.
If they don't,
it
suggests that the demonize everybody who doesn't lionize Charlie Kirk, beatify Charlie Kirk. If you don't do that, you're terrible. If the Democrat wins and the Republican loses, that whole concept loses a whole lot of steam, and that's one of the reasons why I'm interested in following it. Of course, more locally, the other interesting thing is that Mayorkas wins. He's the front runner for the governorship on the Republican nomination the next time round. So that's one of the reasons to watch. And again, attorney generals can or cannot decide to, or do not decide to join national suits against what Trump is doing. And so that's another reason to watch that has national implications. Does it say anything about the electorate? Well, if people hate Democrats and show up and vote for him, that says something, and maybe they don't hate Democrats so much that they won't vote for them. I don't know. We'll see. So it's a whole lot that I'd really like to see about what's going on there. And that's Virginia. Then there's New Jersey.
All right. Welcome, New Jersey.
Hi, New Jersey. Rutgers-Eagleton poll out today. Sherrill up 50-45 over Jack Ciattarelli. Jack Ciattarelli is making a move. He's going from having a ceiling of 43% to a ceiling of 45%.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a gain. Yeah. So all we need is another 7 years.
50 plus 1, which is the new 538. That's G. Elliott Morris's polling aggregation site, which isn't fully open, but at least is open for the Virginia and New Jersey governor elections.
All right.
Sherrill's up by 6. But again, we talked about partisan polling.
Okay.
Rutgers University Eagleton Center, Sherrill 50, Citarelli 45. Recent governor KA Consulting changed New Jersey Super PAC for Republicans. Sherrill's only up by 3. Citarelli only has 44, by the way. Fairleigh Dickinson, Sherrill 52, Citarelli 45. Beacon Research, Fox News, Sherrill 50, Citarelli 45. What I'm trying to say is that Citarelli, even in the partisan polls, like Trafalgar, Inside Advantage, has a ceiling of 45.
Yeah, okay.
Sherrill's ceiling is 52. On average, she's got a 6-point lead. Sherrill is going to be the next governor of New Jersey. The question is going to be the margin. And Citarelli is making inroads into, some voting constituencies, for example, Jewish voters who are nervous about Mamdani in New York City and just in general feel threatened by life.
Sure. Well,
and, and with reason. Yeah. But that's not a reason to go with Citarelli. And so, we're going to see New Jersey trend a little bit, Ocean County and other population centers, going to see them trend a little bit more red over the next few years, partly because they don't like Phil Murphy, the outgoing Democratic governor. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that, matters. But it looks like 2 Democratic wins. And after 2 weeks, when if those two people actually wind up winning their elections, then we have to revisit this whole thing about Democrats are unpopular and they can't win, and they have to redo everything.
Yeah. All right.
Maine after the break.
Oh, I remember them. Remember the Maine.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com. Secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got a lot of other things to round up. We didn't forget the Maine, because the instruction is to remember the Maine. But and I know that's in the queue for you, Greg, and I don't know whether that was next or we have something else to wrap up first. But
no, let's do it next.
All right, Maine, with an E on the end.
So there's this fellow, and his name is Graham Plattner.
No one has mentioned him on this show to date.
I've seen people call him a lobsterman. He's not. He's an oyster farmer and a harbor master.
Yes, I mean...
Does that make a difference? No, I'm just saying
a little
that's
while
what
he's been doing.
Don't call him a lobsterman.
Okay, right. It isn't what he is. Oysters.
He's
I
been
don't
a bartender.
like oysters. Has he?
He's been in the military. He's a
true.
really interesting guy. And he had a bit of a following. Bernie endorsed him, and the Bernie Bros love him online.
Yeah.
And the problem is that he new to politics. When he announced, was interesting but unvetted.
Yeah.
Some folks felt he was John Fetterman 2.0. He's not. He's his own person.
Okay. Yes, we did. Say
so I think you can dismiss that one. But what he does have is a tremendous amount of baggage that Oppo Research is coming out with. And the latest, in addition to texts that he hasn't, avowed, he's disavowed, when he was younger and going through an interesting period, which he will talk about, and we'll play a little bit of a video of him doing exactly that, a bit of an explainer.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
With discussion before we get there.
Okay.
The thing is that he has a Nazi death head tattoo.
He does. Yes, as it
and this
out.
May be a problem. This is the symbol that concentration camp guards used.
Mm-hmm.
And, his explanation for a lot of this is, look, I was in the Army, I got out of the infantry, Afghanistan, Iraq, tough times, bit of depression. A lot of guys my age had stuff like this without really thinking through what it was. You'll hear him in his own words explain it.
Okay.
And, you can have two thoughts in your head at the same time. All of that is true. And as a person, you shouldn't dismiss and, ignore the whole redemption cycle, the redemption arc that people are very fond of, because you can grow up, you can learn, and you can get out of that phase. And that in and of itself doesn't make you the preferred candidate to run in your party against Susan Collins. Those two things can be true at the same time.
True.
But in the end, this isn't dumping on Graham Plattner. Fact of the matter is, Maine voters will decide there's a primary, so there's really no reason to get, exorcised one way or the other about it.
Yeah.
But this is the background. And there is a lot of material. And is there more? And is there stuff we don't even know about yet? This has all come up. People have discussed it. Some people are unhappy with it. Some people are defending it. And Graham Plattner, in his own words, explain some of it, and that's a video I'd like you to play. It's long, but I just want to hear the first minute or so and get a reaction about to like 1:15 or so. You can cut it off at an appropriate time for you, but just listen to it and then tell me what you think.
All right. I want to comment also. The people are I guess there's a new trend in I guess they used to call lavalier mics, a little clip-on mics that people are using for their interviews, and they're getting bigger. And I saw one the other day that looked like body cams for whatever reason, and I'm getting confused. We played a video the other day where somebody was wearing one. I don't remember which one it was, but I guess this is now the trend. And also people love interviewing people with those tiny little microphones.
They are getting bigger. I mean, I saw one of them, and my first thought was, oh my God, there's the shower head I've been waiting for 2 weeks. It finally came.
I don't know why.
They sent it to that guy by mistake, and he clipped it to his chest. It's enormous.
It's really weird. All right, well, that's not really the point. Graham Plattner, is this specifically about his tattoo? Let's find out. The first minute or so, let's go.
Hey all, it's Graham here.
Hey, Graham,
as you've probably seen, there's a story that's broken about comments I made on Reddit in an earlier part of my life.
That was earlier this week.
As I read through them, I read things that I absolutely do not agree with. I read through and I see things words and statements that I abhor. I also see the trajectory of my life. When I got back from Afghanistan in 2011. I stayed in the Army for another year. I got out in 2012. Some of the worst comments I made, the things that I think are least defensible, that I wouldn't even try to defend, come from that time. I had spent the bulk of my 20s in the infantry, deploying overseas, fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. The infantry was a very male-dominated place. It's a very masculine world. When I was in, women weren't allowed in the infantry. It's changed now, and that's a good thing. But when I got out, I still had the crude humor, the dark feelings, the offensive language that really was a hallmark of the infantry when I was in it. I made comments that I'm not happy about, that I do not agree with, but they came from a time and place in my life. And as I read through the comments that were released, I can see myself changing. All
right. Now that's about the first minute and 15 or so.
Yeah.
He's going somewhere. He's taking his time with it. You're allowed to do that. No windscreen on the microphone, I note, for the record. But okay. I see where this is going.
He's an outdoorsy kind of guy.
Yeah. And there's no, I don't know, does he address had the tattoo come into it yet when he made this video?
I don't know that it did. That's relatively recent. Yes. I didn't listen to it beyond another 30 seconds or so, but I just wanted to get the flavor of what it felt like, and the guy's sincere.
Sure.
And so he's also, and we talked about this the other day, when we were talking about my buddy Curtis Lewa.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Plattner is authentic.
Okay.
How much does that count for? We'll see. There's a primary.
Yeah. And by the way, there are several other candidates. It's not just him and Mills. Those are just the ones that people are noticing. They're from out of nowhere and presumably it's just if they haven't got a lot of momentum behind them, one, they're probably not going anywhere, and two, they probably, like Plattner, are coming from out of nowhere, just haven't really seized the moment and made exciting videos yet.
Right. If for some reason Mainers reject Plattner,
yeah,
they're not going to go with another person they never heard of just in case. Let's see what happens.
I would imagine not. No one's got anything, no momentum at the moment.
Mills.
Okay, I mean, there's time, but what can I tell you? If one of them is self-destructing, then I guess something happens. I don't know, right. Or someone else steps in. Yes, there are already 8 candidates, but I'm exciting, or will make myself exciting, and there's a lane open. There's that too, right? If you're in Maine right. and you're thinking about coming from out of nowhere, there is a lane open for you now.
There's a lane for younger candidates.
Sure.
There's a lane for I don't promise to endorse Chuck Schumer. Mm-hmm. As leader, right. There is, a lane for different thinking. There is a lane for independence, mm-hmm. Angus King style. And again, Maine is an older constituency relative to other states.
Right. True. So, okay, we'll see. Now, I don't know if he addresses the tattoo. And word is that he'll probably address that the same way. I was young and I didn't know what it was exactly. And
no, he did, and he apologized for it and said, "I'm removing it."
Oh well, that's no longer operative. I think I spent the day yesterday, as I said, we're driving in the car, so it wasn't real easy to watch everybody's videos and see all the reactions. But maybe I assumed too much about it and said he's probably going to spend the day saying, "I was young and I didn't know what it was." Oh, you didn't know what it was? All right, well, because I did run into a lot of people who said I didn't know what that was. Both online and in real life. And I understand that to an extent. Although, again,
I think he also said I was young and I was drunk.
That's true, too. And then I saw somebody who has also got a sizable tattoo in the same place and said, this is mine. You see, it's a lot less ink intensive. This was 4.5 hours to get on me. And the other one with much more ink, how drunk were you? And how
I don't know. What does it mean,
drunk?
Said Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, right. I'm not a huge tattoo fan, and I won't say I get too, too judgmental about it and stuff. Yeah. People do things when they're young, but that's one of the things.
This guy was in the infantry.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're in the infantry, and if you're in Afghanistan,
right.
I don't hold anything against anybody, really.
Yeah,
except
generally speaking.
That doesn't mean I want you to be my senator.
Right. I mean, it comes down to that. I say things like, well, people make weird choices when they're in this situation, but also some people don't make those weird choices. And when I'm looking for someone to be one of 100 select legislators at the upper house, I say, I'm looking for the people who say, I get the attraction and we're all drunk and having fun, but this thing is going to be on me forever, and I understand concepts like the future. All right, that's the guy I would prefer. Actually,
look, even if I don't have a horse in this race because I am not a Mainer.
Yes.
And I'm not voting there. It'll be up to the Maine voters to decide what they want to do. I don't think anybody is obligated to drunkenly tattoo a Nazi symbol on their body.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah. And I don't know. The whole thing about the tattoo thing, what can I say about it? There's none on me, so I got that. Going
people do stuff. Don't hold it against them personally.
No,
I don't think that he's a Nazi.
He'd be my first choice for oysters.
Well, I would say though that it may be, and we'll see, that perhaps there are some Maine voters who, don't want that.
Right. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Look, get a tattoo, get your unit, insignia tattooed on you. That way I would understand.
But again, when we look at the Attorney General race in Virginia, it may be that none of this matters.
Right. Could be. All right. Well, anyway, I don't know. Also, I guess the next question is they discovered this tattoo because he's in a video with his shirt off somewhere, and like, why was that happening? It's another weird thing. Sure, you do that when you're a private citizen and young and nobody cares, but and Pete Hegseth is the defense secretary with all those tattoos too. So
I've told you this story in the past.
Oh.
But back when I was doing advisement work, I won't even say consulting work, unpaid advising the government about pandemic preparedness, I worked fairly closely, participated in panels, went down to Atlanta. I worked fairly closely with what was then the CDC. I don't know what it is now. But back then, I knew people there. They knew me. We discussed a lot about online. I tried to educate them about the online world, about blogs, what they were, why social media was the coming wave. I tried to warn them about anti-vaxxers and how they're getting a louder voice. Not that they listened to me, but these are the things that I told them. And at one point, the CDC spokesperson decided to retire. And so folks I knew at the CDC privately contacted me and said, would you be interested, open, considering if I put your name up for CDC spokesperson?
Okay.
And I laughed. And I said, I blog.
Yeah.
Do you know what that means? And if you don't, let me tell you, I've got hundreds, if not thousands of comments that if you go back and look, you may or may not wish to be associated with the CDC, which you would like to be nonpartisan. So rethink that thought.
Yeah.
And of course, I told them no, because I didn't want to embarrass them. I wasn't worried about being embarrassed, but I didn't want to embarrass them. So the idea that you might have stuff in your past that if you say 1,000 things might come up for discussion.
Right. Then you say no.
Then you say
not
no.
Me. Yeah, I mean that's that too. That was basically the thinking on the Reddit comments and the whole. I'll tell you the whole package. I guess for Graham Plattner, it was just interesting to me that I understand you get upset about the direction of the country. Everyone should. Thank God you do. If you didn't, I'd say there's really something wrong with you. But every once in a while we run into this where people get angry about these things and then say, "I'm jumping in feet first." Way over my head, like United States Senate, because you're how about the Maine State Senate, something like that.
Right.
Try something out, learn how to legislate before you say, out of all the people in this country, we're going to select 100 of them to decide how the rest of you live. I've never done this before, and that's my selling point. Well, all right, then the rest of you has got to have an exemplary story. You don't?
So,
all right, well then maybe no.
Just for grins, I went to Daily Kos and I'm looking at my personal page here.
Yeah.
And I've got 5.7 thousand stories written and 84.8 thousand comments.
Yes.
Do you think you could find 3 things that are offensive if you wanted to pull out for APA research and say this is terrible? You're just, Well,
I couldn't because it would take too long and I don't want to.
Me, that's exactly what I'm thinking. But could you find them if somebody took the trouble? Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, you just got to get the right OCD person to look through them.
Right.
Very obsessive.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's doable. He's 100% right, Graham Plattner, in saying, if you look through all my Reddit comments, you'll find things that are, as the kids say, cringe. And I cringe at them now, too.
Yeah, I find
same
them cringe.
Thing. Right. Absolutely. I've certainly written things where I said that. Oh, my God. What was I thinking? Yeah, there will be those things. I didn't, tattoo them on myself, but I did say them. And again, I can't be I'm not personally like, I hate you if you're tattooed, but I've made different choices, so I'm going to be coming at this from a different angle. You can explain it all you want, but to me, I'm like, I don't find myself getting in the door of the tattoo place, so I'm not super in tune with what you're saying. But I was in the Army. Yeah, absolutely. Understand it. Stay in the Army, work around the Army, don't leave the Army, but drag your Army experience into the Senate, then I'm going to want to, what was it like? What was it all about? Oh, it ended with you with a Nazi tattoo, did it? Well, choices are choices. You're a great harbor master. If I need to get my boat in there, I'll call you. If I need to legislate, what can boats be like, or can I have health care? Is a year or so to the primary. Do you mind if I shop around? Now, okay, great. All right, thank you. That's all. You can be upset about it. It is another lesson that every so often one of these things goes on, and a new generation of people learns. Why did I tell everybody that this guy was the Messiah? I'm not going to do that again. Yeah, okay, good. You've learned a lesson that hundreds of thousands, millions of people have learned before you, and will learn again after you as new people have that experience. It's okay. You're not dumb. It's all right.
Right. So let me, this is from the New Republic, and let me just use their words so we're clear about what we're talking about with Graham Plattner.
Yeah.
Graham Plattner, an upstart Democratic candidate running to challenge Republican Maine Senator Susan Collins, reportedly acknowledged that a skull and crossbones tattoo is a Nazi military symbol. Jewish Insider reported Tuesday, that's a conservative leaning magazine, by the way, in case you don't know. Reported Tuesday, that's where Josh Kraushaar reports from. Reported Tuesday that an acquaintance of Plattner's had heard the former Marine refer to his chest tattoo as, quote, my Totenkampf, a German term referring to a specific skull and crossbone symbol used by a branch of the Nazi SS that has since been resurrected by white supremacists, according to the Anti-Defamation League, also a very conservative-leaning group these days. Under Jonathan Greenblatt. In a statement to Jewish Insider, Plattner says he absolutely would not have gone through life having this on my chest if he knew the tattoo resembled the Nazi symbol, and he was already planning to have it removed. Plattner first publicly admitted he had the tattoo in his chest during an appearance on Pod Save America last week. After images of it had surfaced, we chose a terrifying skull and crossbones off the wall because we were Marines and skulls and crossbones are a pretty standard military thing. And then we all moved on with our lives. Plattner's former campaign director, who resigned last week, suggested Tuesday the candidate must have known about the image's origins. And apparently it's not obvious to everybody because there are still supporters who are trying to excuse it, says this piece. Then they go on to say, let's keep it simple. This is from Lawyers, Guns, Money. And let's just say, let me just tell you the headline, know when to fold them. I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we could debate it long and hard, and we had nothing else to discuss in the car yesterday. But trying to defend it as there are better defenses, certainly. Like, well, it's skull and crossbones, tough guy kind of thing. Better. I think I saw.
I'm thinking Apocalypse Now and playing the Wagner music and stuff. It's part and parcel of the thing. That wasn't all made up.
I on the other hand, I saw. I'd say no. This is a worse direction, a worse defense. I think Ryan Grimm saying, if you don't know what it is or whatever, but apparently he did, and you're looking on the tattoos on the wall and you're picking something that looks cool, like he's saying, this skull and crossbones reads more Grateful Dead to me than Nazi. Like, well, no, I think that's actually a pretty super stupid thing to say. Famously unconcerned with the iconography of a band that people dedicate themselves to following around the planet. I think they know which skulls are Grateful Dead ones and which ones are not. You're not trying to tell me he's like a Grateful Dead fan and he thought that was
right.
No, come on,
that ain't it.
That's just wrong. A pirate, tough guy. Okay, sure. Although honestly, it was probably up next to the swastika on the wall.
Let's talk about a different guy with stuff that surfaced.
Sure. Which one is that? Nobody else has problems.
And then go back and see just how forgiving you really are.
All right.
Paul Ingrassia, the president's pick to lead the office of special counsel.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of Republicans say, I'm not voting for you because, you're a racist pig.
Yeah. Also, way wrong job for a guy with that problem. He's the guy.
At least 4 Republican senators, including the Senate Majority Leader, signaled their opposition to Ingrassia, the president's pick to lead the Office of Special Counsel. Turns out yesterday, Ingrassia took his name out of consideration.
Yes, but I did it myself, so it's up to me. I could put it back in if I want. Yeah.
And the reason he said is that I don't have enough Republican votes. That was his quote.
Yes.
And he did not resign from his current
Democrats.
position as some kind of advisor to the president and something else.
Of course not. Why would he? He wants a paycheck. He wants to have influence. Yeah, he's a dirtball. There's still we mentioned him early on, and then when he was nominated to head the Office of Special Counsel, I mean, totally the wrong job choice for him. There was some more discussion of his comments in the past, and basically he's lived his life according to the rules of that Young Republicans Nazi chat. From earlier. He also was a fabulist and a faker, telling people that he was a licensed attorney well before he actually was. Right. And I got a couple other stories about him, but now he's out, so I can only share later.
He pushed the fake theory that Nikki Haley was ineligible to run.
Right.
His podcast posted on Twitter, quote, "Time for real Donald Trump to declare martial law and secure his re-election before Biden won."
Yeah, definitely
but most interesting to me is Gabe Fleischer's observation that Ingrassia is the 49th Trump nominee to withdraw this year. No president in recent history has had to take back that many nominations in a single year. Opposition does matter. And it seems like nothing you do matters. It does. A lot of it, all of it matters.
Yeah, you can't deny that when somebody withdraws, and it's not just one person. 49 of them. That
seems like
incredible.
A lot, right?
Right. So, by the way, again, that's 49 wins. Complaining, opposing, pointing it out. Seems like, shouting into the wind, but 49 people who were supposed to occupy positions of influence just don't, because you spoke up, and even Republican senators said, too much for me.
What good does it do to oppose? I mean, they have all the votes. Yeah. Chuck Schumer can posture all he wants. What difference does it make what this shutdown? Politico reports. GOP leaders map out potential Obamacare extension as hardliners warm to health talks. The discussions surround how to structure and advance an extension of key insurance subsidies before the end of the year. While some Republicans are quietly talking about options, GOP leaders are publicly insisting they'll only seriously discuss an extension deal after Democrats agree to reopen the government. Democrats are not agreeing to reopen the government. Still, it's significant that those leaders are sketching out what a deal might look like and how it might move through the House and Senate. While the three people said the conversations remain high level, one option is to pair a 2-year extension of scaled-back subsidies with some other conservative healthcare policy provisions, attach it to some of the annual spending bills, and then go from there. So I'm not saying that it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm saying there's movement below the surface, even though everybody's sticking to their hard line, is what I'm saying.
Okay. And if you're sticking to as much as people are even justified in being fed up with the Democratic leadership under certain circumstances, there's no point in denying the value of having all of those people withdraw from consideration for jobs that they could have been using to screw you over. And don't say nothing matters or that opposition doesn't do anything. You don't win every single time, but what would you be doing ignoring your few small or even large victories? Why would you do that? Why would you think anybody would listen to you if you had no victories to your credit?
Speaking of why would anybody listen to me, I would like to mention two stories before the 10 o'clock deadline here, which is really a little bit before then. But I think they're important stories, however much we or you cover them. Okay. Scott McFarlane at CBS reports pardoned Capitol rioter charged with threatening to kill Hakeem Jeffries at New York City event this week.
Yes, sure.
So no matter how many times you pardon him, you can't take the MAGA person out of the person.
Right. No. And this is one of the more egregious pardons. This was a guy who made it all the way to the Senate floor. You would have seen, if you remember way back when we saw videos of that stuff, when there were weirdos on the Senate floor rifling through Ted Cruz's desk and flipping through.
That would be him.
Yeah, that's the guy. You pardoned that guy.
And if you look at his face, he's kind of scary.
Yeah, right. So now he's pardoned and threatening to kill Hakeem Jeffries.
The other big story that I think is worthwhile, New York Times reports Trump is demanding the Justice Department pay him $230 million.
Yes, me too.
Senior department officials who are defense lawyers for the president will be the ones to decide whether or not that happens.
Yes.
J.B. Pritzker saw that story and said, this is the most corrupt thing a president has ever suggested, and I hope the press treats it that way, and me too.
I mean, I don't know whether they are or not, but there's been negative reaction among the press. By the way, I'm dismissing the case for lack of standing, which I think is the funniest possible outcome for it. But yeah, that is essentially it. The President Trump is suing himself, suing the government, which he says is him because unitary executive, and he's instructing the Justice Department, when I sue for $230 million, your response is, oh, we have no defense. We're going to settle. Here's your $230 million. That's what he wants to happen.
I just want to mention I'm already seeing calls for the Traders Ballroom to be demolished as soon as we get the opportunity.
Yes, that is true. I am seeing that. And
so I'm going to end the segment with how you started.
Okay.
It's all about the Traders Ballroom.
Yeah. And that's it. Look, it's a huge story, and I think it's motivating, and I think the pictures are upsetting people.
Think Salisbury, England, you have this little thatched cottage, and then next to it you have this cathedral, and the buildings are not the same size.
No, they're not.
Does that work? Well, in certain circumstances it does, but you can't just reproduce that and assume it works everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The ballroom is going to dwarf the White House, and to make it sure that happened, they demolished part of the White House.
Yeah. Right. They were saying that it was twice the footprint of the existing White House, but now it's 3 times the footprint of the existing White House because they tore down a significant portion of the White House. So I don't know. The whole thing is insane. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb, but I know people want to symbolically want it torn down because it's a Trump thing. But I would tell you it is a matter of national security. You will have to tear this thing down. Because
and
it
just
is
remember,
a huge risk.
Mike Lukovich is right. Republicans are responsible for this.
Yes, they are. Not standing in the way of it, not reacting with outrage when a portion of the White House is torn down with nobody's review or approval. By the way, do you even know if it's full of asbestos or lead? No, we don't know. It was built during that period, a lot of that wing, when they didn't know how dangerous it was. But Trump has a history of that too. I mean, he tore down all sorts of buildings to build Trump Tower, Bonwit Teller, and no asbestos mitigation.
Yeah, Bonwit Teller is
historic preservation. One. Yeah, that's the worst, most egregious example to date, except for now there's part of the White House. It's just dumb. It's insane. And, of course, he's building it. He's going to wire it with God knows what. It's privately funded. It's going to be chock full of toilet cams and peep cameras. Who knows where? It's a national security risk. You cannot allow that thing to exist. Plus, it's as ugly as hell and stupid. And when are they going to have another ball anyway? All right. Well, if you'd like to guess, you can come back tomorrow and do it, Greg. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Too bad you have to go now, which you don't even really. But you got to have limits, right? All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm working hard to try to move something over to the other computer so I can give you a sampling of some of the dumb things that are happening with audio, just to see if we can make that work. And I'm gonna now have to labor and click around trying to get that all set up, and it's not even the next thing that I'm going to do, I think. All right, so yeah, where do we even start? I mean, I guess we can start with the thing that I was then going to supplement with some audio, because why not? Let me get towards it. But one of the bigger stories of the day, the lawsuit situation. It's real interesting. So the reaction to it among the punditry has been kind of on target in terms of it being terrible. Oh, and then there's a little bit of audio leakage from the video I put aside. But I didn't want to give it short shrift, and when we were making our exit from the last segment, we kind of were forced to do that. But just so everybody, I think everybody kind of grasps it, right? But just so that we understand the conflicts involved and the simplicity with which you really can explain the situation, it is, in fact, Donald Trump ordering the Treasury to write a $230 million check to him. Now, his excuse for doing it is, well, there was all this malicious prosecution of me. It was a huge scam and a huge scandal, a huge hoax. Russia. So what he's doing is he's saying, I'm suing the United States government for wrongfully pursuing me with prosecutions and lawsuits and investigations, claiming I colluded with Russia, which I didn't, which was a hoax, or January 6th prosecutions and investigations, or investigations of my stealing classified information as I left the White House and stole it and hid it down in Mar-a-Lago, and I obstructed the Justice Department's attempts to get it back, all of these things, for which he was rightly investigated and put on trial in some cases. In others, we had to have the trial pushed back, and then thrown out because he was allegedly elected president, and you're not supposed to be able to do that to a president. All of those things. So now those prosecutions, of course, are dropped, can't go forward, whatever, as the case may be, or in some cases just investigations that pointed at violations of the law that he ought to be prosecuted for, but they didn't get around to prosecuting him for. Anyway, he's suing for the inconvenience, and he's not quite calling it defamation, but basically that's the concept here. I'm going to sue. I think I should be paid, I should be compensated for my legal costs, which I, by the way, didn't pay anyway, but I should be compensated for the time, trouble, legal costs of beating back these accusations, because I claim they were all, invalid to begin with. They weren't. They were dismissed for completely separate reasons and very suspect reasons at that. And not only that, but the circumstances that led us to say, well, now at this point we'll have to dismiss all of this are suspect. The first thing he did, literally, in entering office was that there were prosecutions ready to roll on him, and the first thing he did, of course, was dismiss everybody who had set those prosecutions up. They were going to be, possibly be dismissed anyway because of the change of the administration, but he definitely did do that. And then he, of course, installed the lawyers he had hired for his defense in these so-called hoax investigations, became the new Department of Justice. And so they are naturally inclined to do something like this. So what he's now set up is, I'm going to sue for wrongful prosecution and for my damages and my damages to my reputation, which is impossible with him, and time and money spent defending myself, except he never paid anybody for any of the things that he did to defend himself. And I'm going to ask you to ask the government to pick up the tab for that. And the big bonus here is that, one, his defense lawyers run the Department of Justice and are the people ostensibly in position to make the decision initially about whether or not the Justice Department will oppose his lawsuit seeking $230 million. Now, in the first instance, they will say, no, we believe it's in the best interest of this government, which it isn't, to settle this suit. And even if we didn't believe that, the president will direct us to do that anyway, because unitary executive, and I have the right to tell my own Justice Department how I think they ought to do. There's no independence for this Justice Department. That's the way the founders wanted it. It's not, but okay, that's what you say. But in addition, right, the huge conflict of interest, both for the DOJ employees and for the president himself. So he's now suing himself and then telling himself to settle with himself, which, raises all sorts of ethical issues and legal issues as well. I mean, I'm not certain there's a case or controversy here. I don't know if there's federal jurisdiction for this case. So if there's no federal jurisdiction for this case, because there's no controversy, there's not even a second party to this case. It's one person pretending to be two parties. I say there really is no standing here for Donald Trump to press this lawsuit. There's no plaintiff, or at least there's no defense, because he's instructing them to simply surrender. And, at this point, why even stop at $230 million? Why not make it $230 billion? He loves to change millions to billions in his rhetoric. Why not? I mean, if you can instruct both sides, then up your claim, and you can also instruct the defense to surrender, then what's the point of limiting yourself? Anyway, that's literally what's going on. It's quite easy to understand. It's just hard to believe that anybody would actually do it. And, well, that's one of the problems with it. You have difficulty trying to get people to understand that it's really happening, because you figure that can't possibly be the case. I think I put aside a story or two about it, but I have the New York Times article about it, but I think there's also something, if I recall correctly, that I saw. No, you know what? It was just somebody making the point about the way the New York Times handled the article that was interesting, and when we get to that point, how about that? Then I can try and recall for you where that came from and who said it. So the New York Times reports it this way. Trump said to demand Justice Department pay him $230 million for past cases. Okay. Senior department officials, the subheader reads, who were defense lawyers for the president and those in his orbit are now in jobs that typically must approve any such payout, underscoring potential ethical conflicts, right? So I don't even know. I'm not certain where the case, does it say, was actually filed. What I really think would be interesting, of course, would be to file it in like New Jersey or something, using, I don't know, Bedminster as his base of operations for whatever reason. Filing it in New Jersey, I mean, and then having like, well, I instruct the DOJ to instruct, well, I guess the U.S. attorney wouldn't really, I don't know, would they be handling it? Probably not. It was when they're the defendants, not the prosecutors. It won't be the U.S. attorney. So, okay, fine. It'll be the civil division of DOJ. But I just thought it would be interesting to file it in New Jersey, not so much because you need Alina Habba on the case, who was one of his defense lawyers, but because I think I heard the pronunciation of his name the other day as Emil Bove, as opposed to Emile for whatever reason. But Emil Bove is on the appeals court there. So it'd be interesting to see if they were to dismiss the suit or say, I can't, as a federal judge, I cannot approve this proposed settlement. This is just, there's no no sufficient separation between the two parties here. There's a huge conflict of interest. I won't approve this thing. And then having Emil Bove on the review panel saying, oh, no, this was improperly dismissed. I'm going to reinstate this suit because Bove also on the defense team before Trump was returned to the White House for whatever reason. He says he won the most votes. I don't know whether it's really true. Anyway, here's the New York Times coverage of the new scheme in which he's announcing it, I guess, is when he's telling them, because they look rather surprised. Todd Blanche, one of his defense attorneys, Pam Bondi, I think also on the defense team at some point, Kash Patel, never actually on the defense team, I don't think, but certainly on Team Trump all the way. Devlin Barrett and Tyler Pager are the reporters for the Times. President Trump is demanding that the Justice Department pay him about $230 million in compensation for the federal investigations into him, according to people familiar with the matter, who added that any settlement might ultimately be approved by senior department officials who defended him or those, already in his orbit. And that's true. Although I think also if you're filing a lawsuit and then trying to get a settlement, you have to take that to a judge somewhere who has to, I think, approve of the settlement versus insisting that things go forward. I mean, I don't know whether it makes any sense for things to go forward, given that the defense is planning to come in and surrender on day one in court. But I don't know that this is a real legitimate case that you can move forward with. But that has to be settled. And of course, dumber things have happened inside of this Trump administration. Dumber thing, since January. Dumber cases have come down. The situation has no parallel in American history, as Mr. Trump, a presidential candidate, was pursued by federal law enforcement and eventually won the election, taking over the very government that must now review his claims. It is also the starkest example yet of potential ethical conflicts created by installing the president's former lawyers atop the Justice Department. It is rather startling. And I guess everybody knew that Trump was, in fact, running for the presidency in order to prevent these cases from being prosecuted. Everybody understood that. I don't know how many people contemplated his saying, okay, not only can I put a stop to the cases, and that's the bonus of winning the presidency, right? As dumb as it is, he can, in fact, order them to dismiss those cases. What people weren't anticipating was he can also order them to surrender and settle his personal lawsuit against the government he now heads and order that there be a payout made to him personally. I don't know how many people reached that conclusion, but certainly some must have contemplated. I feel like that was an issue that was raised at some point, but first and foremost, I think on people's minds was that he can dismiss all of these cases where he should be sitting in jail if we could just go ahead with these cases. If the Supreme Court didn't block these cases from going forward for so long, he would be sitting in jail. But not only is he not sitting in jail, he can make them pay him. It's actually pretty amazing. All right, let's see. I got some notes here from Scott on this one. So let me make sure I've got that before too many other texts get in the way. But he says that there's something quite good in the MSNBC coverage of the situation. Let's see. I'll hold on to that one and run through the Times thing, because I think there was something else I wanted to highlight in this piece too. So, in addition to the bonus of being allowed to dismiss all the suits and cases against you, now he can also write a blank check to himself. Mr. Trump submitted complaints through an administrative claim process, which raises questions about whether or not he did it properly, in my view. That often is the precursor to lawsuits. So there's no lawsuit yet. That's interesting. The first claim, lodged in 2023, seeks damages for a number of purported violations of his rights, including the FBI and special counsel investigation into Russian election tampering and possible connections to the 2016 Trump campaign, according to people familiar with the matter. They spoke on condition of anonymity. You know why. The second complaint, filed in the summer of 2024. So they both were initiated prior to his re-election, I guess, if you call it that. The second complaint, filed in the summer of 2024, accuses the FBI of violating Mr. Trump's privacy by searching Mar-a-Lago, his club and residence in Florida, in 2022 for classified documents, which this too, again, normally, this is a pretty huge loser of a lawsuit, right? I'm suing you for violating my privacy. Well, we had a search warrant. I mean, that's how the case goes. You lose. There's no violation of your privacy. We had a search warrant. I mean, your privacy was violated, but there's a good excuse for it. The search warrant was that, you could examine the basis of the search warrant, but that's going to hold up too. After all, they had clear and reliable reports that you had hidden classified information in your house and were refusing to give it back. And then they went and found that. That's going to be very damaging to your lawsuit about, well, you violated my privacy and didn't have a reason to do it. Yes, they did. It also accuses the Justice Department of malicious prosecution in charging him with mishandling sensitive records after he left office. But of course, malicious prosecution is a huge part of policy at the Department of Justice now. But remember, we're being malicious against different people. The policy is to be malicious against Trump enemies, not against Trump. So, reason. That's really basically it. Asked about the issue at the White House after this article was published, the president said, "I was damaged very greatly." Well, that's certainly true. "And any money I would get, I would give to charity. Just like I also won't do anything to the East Wing," right? I guess just remember that one. And also, every time he says he's going to give money to charity, he typically will not actually follow through and do that. He'll get someone else to give that money. That's long been a part of his history. And I guess on top of that, you should also remember that he is barred from operating charities, at least in New York State, because of his long record of stealing from them and manipulating them and falsifying their records. So, will he be giving money to charity? No, he will not. He added, oh, and by the way, I would give that money to charity. One of the charities you can give that money to is the White House Historical Fund that is supposedly collecting all of the supposedly private donations to build this monstrosity of a ballroom. But by the way, while we're, passing by that subject again, I know it gets a little bit more complicated than the newspapers like to explain about these things, but every time they say it's being paid for by private money, don't forget that all of those donations to this fund are tax deductible, and that tax deductions are reductions in Treasury revenues. So the $250 million that are being, of private money translates to something probably in the neighborhood of $100 million not going to the Treasury for federal use on anything because they're tax deductions. Now, it's very likely that the entities who give money, the people and entities who gave that money, would just find some other way of donating that money so that they could get the tax deductions. But as it happens, the way they chose is the quote-unquote private, no public funds being expended to build this thing, except $100 million is being expended to build this thing because of the tax deductions. Sure, would they have found it elsewhere? Yes, they would have, but then that $100 million would be disappearing from or never showing up in the Treasury for doing something else, like maybe, I don't know, searching for a cure for some horrible disease or helping some poor people find something to eat, as opposed to building a giant ballroom that nobody wants. Anyway, back to this story. Lawyers said the nature of the president's legal claims poses undeniable ethics challenges. And I think this is the portion that somebody pointed out and said, here's the New York Times trying mightily to run a story, in their normal mode. Some experts say this is a problem, but others disagree. But they couldn't find anybody that disagreed, and so it's kind of interesting. Lawyers said the nature of the president's legal claims poses undeniable ethics challenges. What a travesty, said Bennett L. Gershman, an ethics professor at Pace University. The ethical conflict is just so basic and fundamental, you don't need a law professor to explain it. So, some experts say, not only do some experts not say, no experts say, yeah, this is fine. But in addition, the experts say, I know you come to me for expert opinions so that it looks like you've done your homework, but you do not need the opinion of a law professor or an ethics professor to figure this out. It's so basic and obvious that you're not allowed to make a deal like this with the Treasury at stake between yourself and yourself that, it's silly even to ask a law professor, what do you think? He added, and then to have people in the Justice Department decide whether his claim should be successful or not, and these are the people who serve him deciding whether he wins or loses, it's bizarre and almost too outlandish to believe. The president also seemed to acknowledge that point in the Oval Office last week when he alluded vaguely to the situation while standing next to the FBI director, Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and her deputy, Todd Blanche. According to Justice Department regulations, the Deputy Attorney General, in this case Mr. Blanche, is one of two people eligible to sign off on such a settlement. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well. It was going nowhere, of course. And when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself, Mr. Trump said, adding, it sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? So I don't know. But that was a lawsuit that was very strong, very powerful. Again, very limited vocabulary. Administrative claims are not technically lawsuits. I guess if it doesn't work out, then you could sue after that. Anyway, such complaints are submitted first to the Justice Department on what is called a Standard Form 95, which means paperwork, which means it's probably done wrong, to see if a settlement can be reached without a lawsuit in federal court. If the department formally rejects such a claim or declines to act on it, a person could then sue in court. Still, that is an unlikely outcome in this instance, given that Mr. Trump is already negotiating, in essence, with his subordinates. So it may not even get to the point where a judge can say, but there's no lawsuit or I won't approve this settlement because it isn't even reaching the lawsuit stage. So that's a problem that I had incorrectly analyzed. But yeah, I guess if it gets to the lawsuit stage, that would become the issue, or could become the issue. But they're not even going to get it in front of a judge because they're going to handle it as an administrative claim. If they can manage to fill out standard Form 95 correctly and not have anybody, blow the whistle on it. Compensation is typically covered, of course, by taxpayers. That's you and me. Everybody knows that taxpayers should give Donald Trump an extra $230 million. By the way, remember when he tried pretending? I did see this comment on Blue Sky yesterday. Had to agree with it. Remember when he used to pretend, I'm so rich, I'm not even going to take a salary. We're going to win, just by having me as a rich person be the president. That's $400,000 I can give to charity. And he tried to pretend that he was giving that money away. I think at one point he gave, he wrote a check for what I guess would have been his monthly salary. He did this once or twice, and they made a big deal out of it. And then they just stopped doing it because it was the least of our problems. But I don't know. Maybe they kept making those donations. They just stopped covering it in the news as far as I'm aware. Anyway, just sort of looking around to see if I can find the people I reposted who had said as much, saying that, it's a really... Either one, that this New York Times article had that good portion in it, or two, I don't even remember what we were just pointing out now from the Trump article as we went down that road. Well, that you could settle with yourself. Anyway, compensation is typically covered by taxpayers. Two people familiar with the president's, that's what we were talking about. Legal claims said he had not been paid by the federal government, but that he expected to be. The second claim accused Merrick B. Garland, not the other Merrick Garland, the one we know, then the Attorney General, and Christopher A. Wray, then the FBI Director, and Jack Smith, who doesn't use a middle initial, I guess, in official reports, the special counsel investigating Mr. Trump at the time, all accused of, quote, harassment intended to sway the political outcome or the electoral outcome. This malicious prosecution led President Trump, this is not him talking about himself, right, led President Trump to spend tens of millions of dollars defending the case and his reputation, the claim said. So how do you get to $230 million? I don't know. I like that number. According to the Justice Department manual, settlement of claims against the department for more than $4 million, and that $230 million is more, must be approved by the Deputy Attorney General or Associate Attorney General, meaning the person who oversees the agency's civil division. The current Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Blanche, served as Mr. Trump's lead criminal defense lawyer and said at his confirmation hearing in February that his attorney-client relationship with the president continued. That seems bad and wrong. The chief of the department's civil division, Stanley Woodward Jr., represented Mr. Trump's co-defendant, Walt Nauta, remember him, in the classified documents case. Mr. Woodward has also represented a number of other Trump aides, including Mr. Patel, Kash Patel, in investigations related to Mr. Trump or the Capitol riot on January 6th. A spokesman for the president's personal legal team said he was fighting back against the Russia investigation he has long denounced as a witch hunt and what he has called the weaponization of the criminal justice system by the Biden administration. Oh, those are the guys who did it. I see. A White House spokeswoman referred questions to the Justice Department. That's amazing. Asked if either Mr. Blanche or Mr. Woodward would recuse, that's normally what you would do, or have been recused from overseeing the possible settlement with Mr. Trump. A Justice Department spokesman, Chad Gilmartin, said, in any circumstance, all officials at the Department of Justice follow the guidelines of career ethics officials, except when they don't. In July, Ms. Bondi fired the agency's top ethics advisor, of course. That should probably be noted, and it is. Mr. Trump famously hates recusals. He complained bitterly after his first Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, withdrew from overseeing the Russia investigation that's now the subject of one of his demands for money. The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself, Trump said in 2018. He should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have used put a different attorney general in. Oh, yeah? The Justice Department does not specifically require a public announcement of settlements made for administrative claims before they become lawsuits. If or when the Trump administration pays the president what could be hundreds of millions of dollars, there may be no immediate official declaration that it did so, according to current and former department officials. So that'll be interesting all by itself. Some former officials have privately expressed misgivings. Really? Okay, that's nice. Misgivings that the department's leaders did not reject Mr. Trump's legal claims in the waning days of the Biden administration. It has long been standard practice for civil litigation, including lawsuits against the government, to be paused until any criminal cases around the same facts have been resolved. Well, it might have been worth considering jumping out of line at that point. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. I'll take a look at this MSNBC article on it as well. There's much more, of course. We'll try and cram it all in, or at least some of it, in the next. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. We got to the end of the article, and now the decision on whether or not to use this MSNBC article, and I think I will. Scott was saying that, I guess, is it the Trump quotes that are so interesting, and there's more extensive Trump quoting in this version of the article, and I don't know. I mean, I guess it's this is one of the rare cases where his inability to explain anything clearly is actually illustrative in a way, and his word salad makes it just that much more ridiculous to contemplate this weird conflict of interest, and his, I don't know, his lack of clarity about it is, I mean, I guess should tell everybody. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but the way he explains it makes it sound like, yeah, there's really something hugely wrong with this. And so let's jump into it here. Trump wants DOJ to pay him $230 million for previous investigations, say sources. Alexander Malin, Luke Barr, Catherine Falders are the writers on this. I guess it's an ABC News piece, but I'm reading it off of MSN.com where Scott found it. Okay, so that'll clear things up. ABC News. I guess we can skip the introductory paragraphs and just get to his discussion of it. I mean, the setup is largely the same, and in fact, a lot of it refers to the New York Times reporting on it. But in an appearance in the Oval Office last week with Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, we heard about this one, Trump appeared to allude to the negotiations and the unusual nature of a Justice Department paying out a settlement to the current sitting president. And some of this was quoted in the Times article. It was this part. I have a lawsuit that was doing very well. And when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know. How do you settle the lawsuit? I'll say, give me X dollars, and I don't know what to do with the lawsuit, Trump said. It sort of looks bad. I'm suing myself, right? It does look bad. That's true. According to the Justice Manual, any settlement would have to get sign off from either the Deputy Attorney General or the Associate Attorney General. Blanche is, the deputy, so he could do it. Blanche represented Trump in both the classified documents case and the January 6th case brought by Smith, and the Associate Attorney General, Stan Woodward, represented Walt Nauta, Trump's co-defendant in the classified documents case. Trump pleaded not guilty in both cases before they were both dropped following Trump's reelection due to a longstanding Justice Department policy barring the prosecution of a sitting president. I'm sure there's no Justice Department policy about just rubber stamping administrative complaints that seek a $230 million payout to the president, but largely because no one has ever tried anything like it. But I would imagine that there probably is something that's, at least remotely applicable to this, where the president directing the Department of Justice to settle lawsuits in which he's got a personal interest is probably also, maybe, I would think, somewhere against Justice Department policy, and probably even more important than barring the prosecution of a sitting president. Well, that, of course, if you prosecute a sitting president, he'll be distracted from his important national security duties. Whereas, the other one is just merely a giant violation of the emoluments clause. So, forget about that because that doesn't even exist anymore. So I guess that's why it's okay to do now. Okay, wink, wink. Anyway, Trump, asked Tuesday by reporters in the Oval Office about the New York Times story, said regarding the Justice Department, I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. How ridiculous is that? I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity or something. It's interesting because I'm the one that makes a decision, right? Now they're like, please stop talking, sir. He went on. And that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? Have you? Anybody? No, of course not. But I was damaged very greatly at birth. And any money that I would get, I would give to charity. Asked whether either Blanche or Woodward would be considered conflicted out of signing off on such a settlement, the DOJ spokesperson told ABC News, in any circumstance, all officials of the Justice Department follow the guidance, of career ethics officials. They don't, but this is what we say. We're definitely following their advice, but it's completely contradictory to their advice. No, it isn't. Actually, if you look at it closely, it's the exact opposite. I mean, you can just say that all day long, I guess. Anyway, so that's the big, amazing quote. It does illustrate that he won't stop babbling and he'll only make things worse for himself by continuing to talk about it. But all right, so that's just kind of how crazy things have gotten with this one. And I don't know. I don't know what else to add to this, except to say that there were some, very interesting comments. It was a great story for discussion yesterday all over the internet and in social media. And all right, well, let's see. I'll see if I can scroll through and see if there's any credit to be given in terms of some of the more clever comments and observations around this thing. But I don't know. I'm having difficulty finding it in general. But okay, all right, this is when it started to come up in discussion. So I'm in the right place in my scroll anyway. But anyhow, yes, all right, here we are. It was here's the comment that I had picked up. How do we pronounce your name? Your what do you call it? Your screen name out loud. Is it Tobelz? Tobelz? Tobellz. Currently under the screen name of A Doll in Every Pot, which I remember when that came up, but I can't remember what the context was. But was it the tariffs and the dolls, kids' dolls, and maybe you don't need 50 of them, you can just have one, right? Okay. At any rate, the comment comes from that account on Blue Sky saying, yeah, LOL, remember in 2016 when Trump pretended he wouldn't be taking a salary, right? That was also very, that didn't hold up. Let's see, other interesting commentary on it. I can't remember who it was who pointed to the New York Times story and said, yeah, it's funny, here they are trying to, do the, we turned to experts for analysis on this, and the experts said, yeah, you don't need to be an expert to see that this thing is a huge conflict of interest. All right. I mentioned also, by the way, that I had another story to supplement the Paul Ingrassia story about somewhere buried in Instapaper, and maybe I can go digging them up. But let's see, Ingrassia stories that I never got to, that now at this point seem silly to spend airtime reading, but perhaps you want to review them just so you know exactly what a baddie he really is in case he resurfaces. You're never really done with these people, so it's worth taking a look. But we didn't have time to shoehorn in those stories, but since he's back in the news, we can use this one because it's funny and it goes beyond, he's out, and blames, who knows who for all of it. Anyway, Notice brings us this one. Remember Notice, notus.org. Embattled Trump nominee Paul Ingrassia's mom tried to meet with lawmakers who criticized her son. I wasn't expecting that one. And by the way, it's not my only mom story. And I don't mean by that I've got stories about my mom. I've got stories about your mom. Specifically. No, I don't actually mean your mom. I mean the phrase your mom, and maybe you remember what that was about. If not, I'll remind you later. Embattled Trump nominee Paul Ingrassia's mom tried to meet with lawmakers who criticized her son. And I think, by the way, part of the stories, I guess it would be less of a surprise if I had read those earlier stories that I didn't get out about Paul Ingrassia, because I think that was part of his backstory, is that his mom is a bit of a political player, and that was part of the reason that he was where he was and being nominated for the job he was nominated for. Anyway, Donna Gallo Ingrassia is his mom's name. She demanded meetings at the Capitol Hill office of Representatives Jamie Raskin and Robert Garcia in late June to defend her son. I don't know whether she got those meetings. I would imagine you'd run into a brick wall with Jamie Raskin, although I could see him saying, this should be entertaining. I think I would like to hear this meeting. I mean, I'm not going to change my mind, but this could be funny. Who's reporting? Reese Gorman and Riley Rogerson, an October 21st article, so just yesterday, as Paul Ingrassia's nomination to lead the Office of Special Counsel languishes. Fantastically underqualified for that job and just totally wrong for the position. The wrong kind of person. They're supposed to be the ones handling complaints about discrimination and wrongdoing in other departments, whistleblower protection. And, he's the guy who's actually to blame for most of the harassment that people would be complaining about. Anyway, as Ingrassia's nomination to lead OSC languishes, and now is over with, it's hard to find anyone willing to defend him in Congress. But the Trump nominee, who allegedly sent messages saying he had a Nazi streak, and that's a quote, does have someone willing to go to bat for him on Capitol Hill, his mom. And you should always be able to count on your mom for that, even if mom's embarrassed about your Nazi streak, which she might not be. Donna Gallo Ingrassia, a New York-based real estate agent. Oh, no, not New York real estate. Tried to confront the top Democrats on the Judiciary and Oversight Committees, Representatives Jamie Raskin and Robert Garcia, respectively, and defend her son at their offices in late June, according to multiple sources familiar with the situation. The attempted confrontations followed a letter that Raskin and Garcia sent on June 26 to the leaders of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Republican Senator Rand Paul and Democratic Senator Gary Peters, where they expressed their, quote, grave concern regarding President Trump's nomination of Paul Ingrassia to lead the U.S. Office of Special Counsel. Mr. Ingrassia is unfit to serve as special counsel, and his nomination is insulting to the American people, the letter reads, citing the 28-year-old's inexperience, defense of January 6th rioters, and, quote, close associations with anti-Semitic extremists, unquote. And remember, this is the party and presidency that's going to protect everybody from anti-Semitism, with the exception of our own anti-Semitism, that is. Ingracia's mom took issue with the letter and 4 days later showed up unannounced at Raskin and Garcia's personal offices. When she arrived at Raskin's office, which was locked during the day due to threats Raskin receives, Donna began knocking, like murdery Trader Green used to do at AOC's office before she was elected to Congress. When staff opened the door, she said, "You may have heard of my son, Paul," and demanded a meeting with Raskin, a source familiar with the encounter told Notice. She then pressed staff about why the door was locked. Maniacs like you. Staff informed her the door was locked because of threats that Raskin receives. Donna responded, "What kinds of threats?" The source told Notice, "None of your business, but the death kind." She continued to press staff for a meeting with Raskin. Staff informed her that he was not in Washington, D.C. because the House was on district work period. And you can blame who for that? That's right, the Speaker of the House. The same day, Donna... I guess in June, that one would have been a scheduled one. I forgot. That did not just happen. The story has just been written, but this was a visit in June. The same day, Donna also sought out Garcia. She showed up to Garcia's personal office and similarly demanded a meeting with the congressman. A second source familiar with the matter told Notice. Donna told staff that Garcia had said, quote, disparaging things about her son, and she wanted to make sure she, quote, could give him a piece of my mind. Well, you can't because he doesn't represent you. Garcia's staff gave her the same answer. The congressman's not in Washington because the House is on recess, to which she responded with what the source described as a, quote, sarcastic comment, handed over a business card, and left. When reached for comment via text message, Donna admitted that she, quote, visited both and requested a meeting, and they never called me. If dialogue is one-sided and no one listens to one another without communication, how in the world can anything be accomplished? She added. People hate, and they do not even know why they hate. Pride, jealousy, wrath, greed, sloth, envy, deadly sins. Thank you for considering my thoughts. Okay. Whatever. She also defended her son. Paul is a strong, unwavering Catholic who is a staunch supporter of President Trump and his agenda, she told Notice. This is an effort to muddy and derail the best candidate for the job. Schumer is a hypocrite, phony, and against President Trump and his agenda. Oh, no, not that. Schumer is largely responsible for the continued shutdown of the federal government. When Notice followed up to ask about the House visit specifically, she continued to express support for her son. Paul has a lot of congressional and senatorial support, she said. He has tremendous support from Jewish leaders and the Catholic community. Paul is articulate, intelligent, and wise beyond his years. He has strong family support and leads a life of faith, integrity, and virtue. Very loyal. Outcome... God's will, and then praying hands emoji she sent in a separate text. The White House declined to comment on the visits by Paul and Gracia's mom. The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request for comment, and Gracia's confirmation hearing currently set for Thursday is in doubt after a number of scandals, including allegations that he sent racist and offensive text messages and was investigated for sexual harassment. He has denied all allegations. Even Senate Majority Leader John Thune hopes the White House pulls his nomination. He's not going to pass, Thune told reporters Monday night. On Tuesday, Raskin sent another letter to Trump emphasizing what is now a bipartisan belief Gracia's nomination should be pulled. I write now to demand the obvious. What even your own Republican senators are telling you, that you must withdraw this abysmal nomination and fire Mr. Ingracia from the federal government effective immediately, Raskin said in that letter. Now, he's withdrawn his nomination to head the Office of Special Counsel, but as Greg mentioned, no word and no indication that there's any interest in firing him from his other current job in the federal government. Anyway, I said there was another mom story. And there is. Where the hell is it? I'll go searching for it in Instapaper. I might even be able to search it up. I guess not that way. But I'll have to go back to it. But it was a Huffington Post story. And I guess they're not going to allow me to go back into the rest of the listed articles. Okay, I got to switch around in order to find this thing. So let me scroll and look for it. It was a Huffington Post story, and I can long story short it by reading the Blue Sky Post that brought it to my attention. If I can just find the thing. Is this one it? Yes, that's it. Oh, and there's a whole actual like national security issue that goes along with it. So I think the Blue Sky Post that I saw that brought this one to my attention. Can I get this on? Open in the browser. Yeah, I guess this was the thing that was of interest to me. So the real question was one of national security and foreign relations. Let me go back to it, and I'll get you maybe the best thing to do is to read the HuffPost story, because there's a real story of a real issue, and then another thing that is the carryover from the last story comes up more or less at random, except now it becomes a story all by itself. So, okay, here's S.V. Date reporting for the HuffPost. Trump to hold Putin summit. That is a summit with Putin, not a summit about Putin, in Budapest, or Budapest, as they say, where you'll never meet a Ruderpest, as it happens. If you're talking about meeting with dreadful Hungarians, where's that one? Didn't I save that one at some point? All right, well, that's hiding in my... there it is.
That dreadful Hungarian.
I can barely make it out because it's such bad audio. But yeah, My Fair Lady reference. That's an oldie. Anyway, so they're going to have this summit in Budapest. Why is that of interest? Well, as it happens, and they point out in the headline, that is where Russia promised not to invade Ukraine. So very interesting. So, 2 summit/weirdo offhand meetings with Putin on the schedule in the first 10 months of the Trump administration. That's, kind of highly unusual. There was the Alaska meeting that he said was going to be a summit, and they didn't even eat lunch. How could it be a summit if it doesn't have lunch involved? And that was the one where Trump was stumbling all over the carpet too, meandering all over the place, and basically Putin landed in Alaska. Bad symbolism in all of that. Landed, harangued the press, turned around and left. It was a huge embarrassment, really, for the Trump administration, but they just brushed it off and didn't discuss it anymore. Now they're going to have another summit, this time in Budapest. And the thing is, people in the know are pointing out that every time he wants to meet with Putin, he says, let's have a meeting. And he lets Putin select, I guess, the location. And every time Putin's like, really? You're going to let me do this? Fine, I'll do the thing that will be embarrassing to you in front of anybody who knows anything about our foreign relations. Alaska and now Budapest. Asked who chose Budapest, given that history, it wouldn't have occurred to me. Offhand, you say Budapest. Oh, okay. Well, that's bad because Hungary Orban, and that probably is not a great idea. But it's also the place where Putin, I guess, told whoever he was meeting with, oh, we're not going to invade Ukraine, and then just did. So it would be interesting. Like, did Putin select it? We don't know. How do you find out? You ask questions. Asked who chose Budapest given that history. A top White House aide, including, several, it says top White House aides, 2 of them, told HuffPost, your mom. Honest to God, that's not a joke. That's not The Onion. It's not a playground situation. They asked the White House press secretary, how did that happen that they chose Budapest? That's weird, don't you think? And I don't know whether she knew it was weird or not, but I guess she must have, because she's too embarrassed to say what the answer is. So she says, your mom. The White House press secretary. That is where we are, country. Are you listening? Wow. Or as Stephen Colbert says, nation. We've got problems. That's it. That's the story. There's a real, reporting surrounding it, and it looks like this. President Donald Trump is touting another meeting with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin about his country's invasion of Ukraine, this time in Budapest, Hungary, the city where Russia promised not to invade Ukraine 3 decades ago. decades ago, if it gave up its nuclear weapons. Yeah, okay, all the way back in the 90s. We're going to be meeting in Hungary. Viktor Orban is going to be hosting, Trump told reporters at the Oval Office on last Thursday, referring to his friend, that country's authoritarian president. Trump's announcement came following a phone call with Putin on the eve of his planned White House meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's unclear whether Trump is aware of the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, in which Russia pledged to respect Ukraine's territorial integrity. Putin first violated that promise in 2014 when he invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula, and again in 2022 with his full-scale invasion. Trump met Putin in Alaska in August, which ended without the ceasefire Trump had said Putin needed to agree to. It is unclear why Budapest was chosen as the location for the next meeting. In response to HuffPost's query about who suggested Budapest, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responded, "Your mom did." And, if you were wondering whatever happened to this guy, the White House Communications Director, Stephen Chung, replied, "Your mom." Wow. I mean, not only he like totally Grover Dills this thing. Yeah, your mom. As it happens, though, it was interesting because my mom a couple of days ago asked me that. Whatever happened to that guy, Stephen Chung? We don't hear his name very often anymore. And I said, I don't know, maybe he's working on, he was the campaign side. Maybe he sort of stayed in the political side. I don't remember whether they gave him a White House role or not, but they did. White House Communications Director, different from the press secretary, is his new job. And he now spends it walking around, following her around, saying, yeah, what she said. Your mom did. Wow. So because my mom asked me what happened to Stephen Chung, I have to ask the only possible follow-up question. Who suggested Budapest? Your mom did. Yeah, your mom. So I asked my mom, did she suggest Budapest? She denies it. So, now we have a real problem. I'm sure Trump doesn't know and doesn't care, said Jim Townsend, who has worked at both the Pentagon and NATO and is now an analyst with the Center for New American Security. Trump likes Orban and probably thinks he's doing him a solid. Also, Putin is an Orban friend. Most of the world would not consider Budapest neutral ground for such a meeting, but I guess Trump and Putin do. Just like Alaska. It isn't. It's a setup. Jan Techow, or I don't know, is it Jan? Maybe yes, maybe no. Techow? I have no idea how that's pronounced. Techow. Techau. Sorry, Jan. Could be Jan. Could be Jan. Coffee for Jan. A Berlin-based analyst for the Center for European Policy Analysis said he did not know whether Trump would see any irony in holding such a meeting in Budapest. The visit there serves him well on many fronts. He can demonstrate his absolute willingness to broker peace. He can support his friend Viktor and stick it to the rest of the Europeans in their own backyard. He can be both pro-Ukrainian and pro-Putin. He acknowledges the Central Europeans' need for America's presence and reassurance, and he can once more show the ICC what he thinks of them. The International Criminal Court is the ICC and has issued arrest warrants for Putin and other top Russian officials on charges of war crimes in Ukraine. While most European nations honor the ICC's findings, the United States does not. I'm not certain whether Hungary does either, but that's another one of the issues. And I guess that's why you have White House spokespeople saying your mom is the answer, because they know that the answer is who's suggesting these meeting places? Putin is. Is he suggesting them because they're symbolic of American humiliation or that he can use it for propaganda in some way? Maybe yes. That could certainly be the case. Putin seems to have that kind of long memory. But also the issue is the reason we let Putin select the meeting locations is that he needs to select them carefully and find places that won't enforce ICC warrants for his arrest against him. And it would be embarrassing for us to acknowledge that we keep meeting with a guy who has to dodge arrest warrants, and we keep letting him pick the place because the rest of the international community considers him a war criminal. and we're meeting with him, and we're accommodating his need to duck justice. So therefore, we answer with, your mom. Trump had initially praised Putin for his genius and savvy when he invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, then began blaming Zelensky for his country getting invaded and former President Joe Biden for allowing it to happen. In recent months, Trump has started to criticize Putin for his murderous attacks on civilians in near-nightly missile and drone assaults on residential areas. In recent weeks, Trump has said he's willing to sell U.S. weapons to other NATO allies for them to give to Ukraine, including Tomahawk cruise missiles that would let Ukraine hit targets deep in Russia. On Thursday, Trump again expressed his inability to understand why Zelensky, whose citizens are getting slaughtered almost daily, and Putin, an accused war criminal, cannot get along. I mean, we have a problem. They don't get along too well, these two, he said. This is a terrible relationship for the two of them to have, and it's one of those things. That's a great summation of one of the most important conflicts of our time. Sir, what an understander of international politics you are. And how amazing is it that we have a situation where tearing down the White House, paying himself directly out of the Treasury, and having his White House spokespeople answer inquiries, fair inquiries about who made this decision or where did this idea come from with your mother. Incredible. And you're just not allowed to punch these people in the face. So it's against the rules, and it's against Justice Department policy as well. So I don't know, you just have to live with it and allow him to back the Brinks truck up to the Treasury building or Fort Knox for that matter and just make off with all the money. By the way, he lost interest in examining whether all that gold is still in Fort Knox. And others have pointed out, I think Daily Tricks pointing out, it is curious. He seemed to lose interest in visiting Fort Knox to inspect the gold about the time that he started putting gold-plated everything, or at least gold spray-painted everything, into the Oval Office. Maybe that's where all the gold went to. It's been weird. It's been a weird couple of days. We got more weirdness to cover tomorrow. Thursday coming next, and Greg Dworkin will return to the air with us. We'll do another such roundup. We still got more time to talk about what's weird on Friday. In the meantime, Justice Putnam brings you the next installment of Weirdness.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's right. The West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes next right here on Netroots Radio. What's up? Up at the top, Trump's approval is crashing to new lows while he literally bulldozes the White House to the ground. That's got to have something to do with it. And then, of course, an interesting roundup and survey of all the other stories that we may have missed from around the country and around the globe and maybe the universe, too. See you tomorrow.